Welcome back to the 1% Show. If you're new here, tune in to hear me spin the yarns with authors, savants, and eccentric humans every week. I'm your Aussie host, Brandon Nangervel, and it's time to kick back and enjoy the show. Let's go. This episode is brought to you by Blinkist, a pretty sweet app that gives you key insights from over 2,000 best-selling nonfiction books, transformed into powerful packs you can read or listen to in just 15 minutes. These powerful packs are known as Blinks. Some of my favorite Blinks include Superintelligence, Deep Work, and The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Head to Blinkist.com/1% better to get started. That's Blinkist, Blinkist.com/1% better. 1% better is all words, lowercase, no spaces. Again, head to Blinkist.com/1% better to access key insights from over 2,000 best-selling nonfiction books straight from your phone. So to the listeners listening in, today we've got Mario Tomic. Correct me if I'm wrong with how to pronounce your last name, Mario. Did I say it right?
That was actually perfect. Yeah, you got it, man.
Yes, awesome. So you seem like a really chill guy just based on the short conversations we've had before getting into this recording. And I would love you, Mario, just to give a brief overview of who you are and what it is that you do in your own words.
Got it. Currently I'm known as a online fitness and nutrition coach. I've been in this field for a couple of years now. I'm also known as a digital nomad. I've been traveling for the last 5 years without staying in one location longer than 3 months. So it's been a hell of a ride in these, I think, 45 plus countries. I stopped counting after a while. And been ever since then, I've been immersed in the evidence-based, meaning science-based fitness nutrition, been really, really on point with that. And that's sort of my passion, and been through a lot of other things as well. Most people know me as well as a marketing consultant. That's what I used to do before. And all of this actually started with me quitting a desk job, which was a government desk job back in 2012. And that was sort of what all just started this crazy journey. And before that, I just got a master's degree in computing. I was always a nerdy guy, always looking into getting more and more knowledge, addicted to improvement, progression, really, really deep into maximizing things. And that's sort of the passion that carried me through all the way to where I am right now. It's just that pursuit of improvement that is sort of the thing that I guess is the thing that really makes me feel alive when I see that I'm moving forward. And that's one thing that I'm pretty sure we can go into detail in that. But that's one thing that really kept me going all the way from ever since I was like a little kid all the way until now. And that's something that has always been a sort of a burning thing inside, is always, okay, how can we make this better? Whether it was video games back when I was a little kid, or soccer when I was playing that, or now it's sort of like, okay, how can I be better at my craft and deliver the best results for my clients and change lives? So yeah, the theme is similar, but yeah, the professions and stuff that I'm doing have changed over the years.
What's the first country that you first explored when you took on this digital nomad life?
Yeah, that's a country that I was actually reminded of recently. It's Netherlands, and I flew directly to Amsterdam, and that was the first country ever. And I actually spent it was 2 weeks ago. I spent some time there at a conference, and I really brought back all the memories and some reflection. And I remember, Amsterdam, for the first time in my life, I actually am in a foreign country, and that was really crazy. First time on a flight, a lot of first times. And back then, even my English wasn't really good, and it was a long way out of my comfort zone to actually go there. And I didn't even know how to use a tram system. I had no clue, man. It was all new, and it was all exciting, walking into massive supermarkets, buildings. I come from a really, really small town. We don't have a whole lot of things in terms of just what you would see in a huge city like Amsterdam. Plus, all the tourists, the fun, the if you go out at night, you see all these crazy things happening, which I've never, ever had the experience with. And man, it was a really, really crazy journey. So that kind of got my interest. And ever since then, I've been sort of on this journey of exploring the world.
Mm. Love it, man. Have you been to Chiang Mai, Thailand by any chance?
No, I haven't. I've been all around Asia. I think there's a few places there that I still have to check out. I have a bunch of friends living in Thailand, in other cities than Bangkok, and also have a bunch of people living in Vietnam. And I've heard such good things about Southeast Asia. I just need to really pull the trigger and go there now, because I'm so much into business and all the conferences and everything that's been going on in terms of fitness. It's all around Europe, US, and Canada. So I've been sort of in this area. But I think next year, since I'm going to be probably moving to Australia, that's going to be nearby. So I might hop over for at least a couple of weeks to check it out, because I heard such great things about the area.
Awesome, dude. My home country. I might be in Hawaii when you come over though, so I might just miss you.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna run into each other at some point. I had a lot of like coincidences like that. We run into people at the airport and everywhere, because it's a small world at the end of the day, because of this space that we're in.
Yeah, oath to that. One last thing on this digital nomad thing. I'm going to see if I can hit another nail in the coffin. And my question is, have you been to Colombia?
No, I haven't. So South America is the only continent that I haven't been to yet. And that's one I just am saving up a little bit, because I was so focused on video work, and I was afraid that the internet might not be very good there in terms of the upload speed. But that myth has been debunked by a few of my friends that were in Medellin, and they told me, okay, look, it's awesome. You should come by. And yeah, it's kind of on the plan. So to get those few remaining countries explored. Colombia, I heard great things about. Brazil. There's a bunch of stuff to see there. So I'm really, really excited. It's good to have something to look forward to.
Yeah, sweet as, man. I just asked about these two places, Chiang Mai and Medellin. I think that's how you say it, Medellin. There's some little whooshy you have to do with your voice there, but these seem like two hot spots that attract a lot of these nomads, and Medina is one I'm looking at. So anyway, even though we didn't get any nails in the coffin, I'm really curious to ask you some more questions. So here's one for you. Could you take us back to when you were 14 years old, Mario? What was life looking like for you?
Boy, I mean, you're looking at a very skinny, shy kid, probably has no clue about what he wants to do in life, and spends half of his time playing video games and the other half playing football or /soccer, however you want to call it, with his friends, and hacking himself through high school or primary school, whatever the age at that point. I believe it's still high school. And yeah, just trying to find a way out, and yeah, try to cram the entire exam in one night and things like that. I was pretty famous for that. I was always looking for the easiest way to accomplish something, always solution oriented. But yeah, not a popular kid. I didn't think anybody pretty much knew me except the professors, which were kind of always impressed by my short-term memory, which I could memorize pretty well short-term. But I mean, I wasn't really internalizing a lot of the factual stuff. I'm not a really big fan of facts type of learning, because I don't feel like I've ever resonated or managed to get much out of it. I was always sort of like, how can I apply this practically? And I could never get those types of answers in high school. And yeah, man, really a life where it's sort of it's very vague. You don't know where you're going to do, and you don't know what you're going to do in life. And you're just following sort of the directions of the quote unquote system, parents, the educational system, and all these other things. I think we all been there, right? So there's not much clarity at that point in my life.
Sure. And how old are you right now?
Currently, I'm 30.
30. Okay. So when you were about 18, 19, when you're about 18, 19, coming out of high school, did you have any more direction in your life compared to when you were about 14?
A little bit more. There was a little bit of this rebellious attitude being built up, and still wasn't there to a point where I could just say, okay, screw all of this. I'm just going to do what I need to do. I was still sort of having a lot of hopes in the system. So I get a degree, find a good job, basically follow the steps that are outlined by the I guess the conventional wisdom, right? Because that's what most people think will lead to sort of a successful and a good life. And yeah, I mean, back then that might have actually been true in some form or another, right? So if you go back to that time, there wasn't really that much going on in terms of technology. So if you look at, let's say, 2017, you can Google my entire college in 5 seconds, whatever you need. Back then, it wasn't exactly like that, but it was trending toward that. And sort of the more I progressed through college, and 5 years to get a master's degree in computing, which is not that easy, but still, I mean, over those years, I've just started to realize more and more there's less and less importance on the actual degree and more importance on building a skill set. Sadly, I never really took that path of, okay, let's just go build valuable skills that I can actually use to add value to the world, to become successful at some field, to really commit to mastery. No, I still went for the degree. I was sort of in that boat, and yeah, it took a while until I realized that that wasn't the solution. So after I finished college, then I realized, oh crap, you know, like the piece of paper doesn't really give you anything. It's just a piece of paper at the end of the day. If you don't know what you're doing, it's like not going to help you. I mean, in some cases it would, but it would not lead to the life that I wanted to live, which is sort of different than I guess what most people consider successful, at least where I come from. Most people consider success to be just in a stable job until, I mean, pretty much you go to retirement and then you live the sort of the good life afterwards, which is something I never really resonated with, because I was in my mind, well, what am I going to do when I'm 60 or something? I mean, you know, if I can do stuff that I want to do now, how can I do those things when I'm 60? So it's not going to, it just didn't really add up in my mind. And that's sort of just been compounding over the years and years as I was in college.
Okay, sure thing. So what then does a typical day look like for you right now?
Well, right now I'm pretty on point with my routine. I mean, as soon as I wake up, I just go through a very, very quick ritual, cold shower, sun exposure, wake up really fast. Probably going to wake up between 7 and 8 in the morning. Finish that 5-10 minutes, just walk around a little bit to get the blood flow. That's what cold shower helps with. And then I just crack into work. That's it. And I know already what is the most important thing of the day, whether it's to do some business emails, whether it's to handle some client work. I know exactly what my biggest objective is, and I get that done before about noon. And yeah, afterwards, it's sort of like, okay, whatever else came up as sort of the secondary stuff, and then I handled that. I consider the day successful if I just do that one big thing, because I've gotten pretty good at identifying what's the biggest leverage point for me in my business. So even if I just do one big thing in a day, that will just increase results massively compared to just, I guess, extinguishing these small fires that come up throughout the day, which doesn't really make that much of a difference. It does make you feel very productive, but I mean, that's sort of this fake productivity that I think we all experienced at some point. It's like you get all these things done, but nothing has really improved. You're still spinning your wheels. So I try to make that first thing in the day something that is outside of my comfort zone, something that I've maybe been delaying, or something that I know that needs to get done. And that's something I do it first. Then I'm going to knock out a little bit of work. I'm going to take a break around noon, then do about an hour or so of work. Probably going to have my meal around that point as well. And then I'm going to hit the gym about 2 to 3 p.m. I'm already pretty warmed up. Body temperature is solid to make some good gains in the gym. Hit the gym. And afterwards, again, I'm going to have a really nice meal, chill out a little bit, maybe wrap up some more work. And hopefully, if I get some free time later, I'll either spend it with my friends, people that I really care about, or I'm just going to read more, listen to more stuff. Really big fan of audiobooks, which is something that's been a life changer for me for the past couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, I make sure that every second of my day is fulfilled. So I don't really have any part of the day where I could say, okay, well, I'm bored. You know, that hasn't been the case for at least the last 7-8 years.
Yeah, gotcha. And now I just want to rewind a bit to cold showers. That really sparks my curiosity. What got you into cold showers, and how do you fess up the courage to hop in the freezing cold oblivion every morning?
Well, I mean, it's not that difficult during the summer now. During the winter, it is quite hard, but you can get the pretty similar effect during the winter if you just take off your shirt and just walk out on a balcony. You will get that initial increase of awareness. You're going to wake up faster. And that's really what the biggest selling point for me is. It's just that I can start off the day by doing something that is going to just snap me back to reality so I can wake up faster. Some other benefits, you could potentially say that it makes you sort of this person that enjoys going outside of the comfort zone. But I mean, if you're going to the gym, if you're crushing yourself every single day with weights, I'm pretty sure you're already outside of the comfort zone. So some of those benefits of the cold shower, I mean, it's just a joke compared to squatting 150, 200 kilos. You know, that's a whole different ballgame. So stepping under a cold shower is not that scary. But yeah, I've been on and off with cold showers for a while. And I think what got me back was I read this book, The Flinch, a couple of times a year. And last time I read it, I think it was back in 2015, and I was living in Canada back then. And I read the book, and I was like, okay, I need to get back to cold showers, because I noticed if I don't start off my day with the right frame, if I don't sort of frame my day as, okay, I'm going outside of my comfort zone without a cold showers or doing the hardest thing of the day, it just sort of goes in that direction at which would you start. So if you start off with any kind of, negativity, or if you start off by snoozing, or if you start off your day with just not doing something very important, it tends to just follow that momentum throughout the whole day. And you feel like, okay, what the hell have I done for the last 24 hours? I haven't accomplished anything. So I just stack those small things that do make me go out of the comfort zone. I kind of tend to stay there. If I just do my first 1 hour of the day properly, it just kind of propels in, and I just get really solid momentum, and it just keeps getting results. And I mean, as I said, I mean, there's nothing really magical about it. There's been some data on it. I mean, we do have some controlled trials on cold showers, nothing super magical. They do have, there's some evidence indicating there might be a potential boost of immune system. Other than that, I mean, it's not going to make you a Superman if you're if you're thinking about that. But I would say that if you're someone who's not used to going outside of your comfort zone, cold shower is a really nice way to start doing that.
Yes, you've put it extremely well. Definitely for some people, and maybe for others not. You just got to do what works for you, right?
Yeah, if you're like a soldier, and you're spending time in mud every day, and you're at extremely cold temperatures, and you're getting shot at, and someone says, "Oh, cold showers are awesome." Yeah, maybe for you, if you're like but the couch potato, and you come back from work and you haven't done pretty much anything today to really get yourself exhausted or get yourself any kind of stress. Well, for you, cold showers might be a big deal, but for that shoulder, for the soldier, it's a joke, right? I mean, he's getting shot at, so it's important to kind of have the context ready when you're making these discussions. And I think online there's often a lot of stuff thrown around as sort of that one thing can be universally good for everybody, which, I mean, we know that it's not the case. But for an average person, let's say, who's interested in just pushing themselves a little bit, I think cold showers are a really safe way to overcome some of those mental barriers that we have toward resistance, basically just procrastinating on something. In a cold shower, I mean, if you can't beat a shower head with cold water, I mean, how the hell are you going to beat anything else in your life, which is ultimately the only way you can become successful.
Yeah, right on. So we're going to jump straight into the next question. This is great so far, Mario. I want to know let me rephrase that. What are your thoughts on NoFap?
That's a very similar one to cold showers. I'd done a video with that with my buddy RSD Max, and we talked about that a little bit because it's been a question that we've been getting for the last couple of years, pretty much, I would say daily. There's some talk about it. And it is a helpful tool for a context where, let's say you're a guy, you barely have any social contact, you don't leave the house, you're addicted to pornography, you're just spending your entire day procrastinating, watching porn, fapping, whatever the hell you do, playing video games. And it's sort of becoming that one thing that you do in your life, and that's it. And in that situation, NoFap can be a really nice way to just get yourself out of that and focus your mind on something else. because it's very easy to occupy your mind with something like that, which gives you sort of this instant gratification feeling, and you're just living in comfort, right? And nobody's really questioning it. Nobody's really going to ask you about it. And it's sort of like your little secret, and you have it, and you can just keep living your life, and nobody's going to touch you or anything like that. Like, nobody's going to come in your space, right? It's kind of your little thing. And you can be trapped in this world and just spend years and years wasting your time. And on the other hand, would NoFap be of any use to someone who is, let's say, in a healthy relationship, someone who's going out, has a big social circle, has really good social skills, networking, crushing in business, crushing in fitness? That person probably doesn't even have time to fap. Like, it doesn't even come to the mind because you're already so busy. So I would say NoFap is a really good movement for a very specific demographic, for a very specific type of person that I think is very, very helpful and should be emphasized more and more. But it's, as I said, again, it's not the universal tool that everybody should be doing, right? If you have a healthy relationship if you have a girlfriend and you're like, oh, I'm doing this NoFap, it doesn't really do anything. It's not gonna do much. But if you're, again, using the FAP as sort of to escape the reality and not living up to your own standard, it's sort of just using that as a tool to just make yourself feel better, and then you hate yourself even more and creates this vicious cycle, then of course I would say that NoFap is a really, really good option. And it's something that I think every guy should even just try out, right? Just freaking try it out. Even if you don't think it's good for you, just try it out, see how you respond, because these are some of the things that just in a couple of weeks, you're going to know how you feel about it. And you might surprise yourself, it might be a really good thing for you.
Yeah, you've put it so, I don't even know what word I want to use, but beautifully. My subscribers know I'm a huge advocate of NoFap, particularly because my own personal experience, it really did completely change my life. For 4 years, I was sort of, I don't know, just grinding through, and my general mood wasn't that great. And I tried fucking everything, man. Like, the exercise and eating well and trying to psych myself out, positive thinking, read 134 books, just supplements, and NoFap was a real game changer for me personally. It was around about day 45 that I really felt the benefits. I did have an energy surge on day 15, but then again, was that NoFap or was that just some other variable? But fully convinced after about day 45 to 50, my mood increased, and it stayed like that ever since. And I don't count anymore. It's been a long time. But my whole mood, my whole life has changed because of it. There's thousands of NoFap success stories, I think, on yourbrainonporn.com. So yeah, and my thoughts are still sort of changing about the subject. Like, I'm I guess more adverse to porn than masturbating. I don't think anyone's gonna die if you have a wank, like whatever. But if if it's a compulsive behavioral problem, every single day you're not doing anything with your life and you're just jerking it, just getting fucking nothing done, it's probably more of a behavioral issue. But yeah, those are just my thoughts to kick back on you. So yeah, thanks for putting it so succinctly. Now, my next question for you, Mario, is what's your involvement with RSD Max?
Right. My buddy RSD Max, we've known each other for a while. Back in the day, I was actually a marketing consultant for Real Social Dynamics. So I got to know him when he was still just the leader of an inner circle. That's what we call these groups around this world in every city. So he was living back in Washington. So I kind of know him from back in the day as a marketing sort of consultant for RSD. I was always in touch with all the guys around the world that were sort of had the potential to become a great instructor or someone who could contribute a lot to this whole movement. And since then, sort of Max kind of just became more and more popular. He was working really hard on building his brand. Then he moved to Vienna in Austria, and eventually he became an assistant and he became an instructor. And since we've known each other for a while as well, I've gone my own route. I committed more toward fitness a couple of years back, and I just decided to sort of leave the marketing space alone, at least as a consultant. I still have to do some marketing for myself, which is obviously the only way you be known in today's world, you got to know what you're doing in terms of marketing. And a couple of years back, Max reached out and said, look, man, I got to pull the trigger on my health. I got to do this challenge. This travel and all this stuff is just destroying me. I want to really build that physique. I know that I have the potential. He was training in the past. He had some experience in the gym, and I decided to take him on as well, and just let's do this, man. And since then, we've been working together. I mean, he's been really successful in implementing pretty much every little thing that I tell him. The guy is an absolute executor. He's gonna crush it, whatever you tell him to do, and he's been getting some phenomenal results ever since I would say 2016, last year, when he said, okay, look, I want to go all out. Let's take this to the elite level. I'm going to be traveling a little bit less. So let's really take this and take my whole health and fitness and blast it 10x this thing. And man, like if you check out his Instagram right now or some of his posts on Facebook, the guy is jacked, right? So he's really taking it seriously, and I'm super happy to see that. And yeah, he's been just implementing and executing, and we've been slowly tweaking his program. He's gone through periods of cutting, periods of bulking. It's been, of course, a challenge. I mean, as a coach, it's always challenging to work with someone who travels that much. And that's sort of what I've actually specialized in, is to help these travel entrepreneurs, digital entrepreneurs, and sort of what Max is as well as an entrepreneur. And he has a really busy life. And it's just a pleasure to see him now becoming that role model, not just as a dating coach, as someone who is really crushing it in dating and in RSD, and in business as well. I mean, his business is going really well, and we stay in touch pretty frequently. But now also he's that role model in health and fitness. You know, if you see a guy if he takes off his shirt, or if you see his Instagram post, you're going to be like, oh shit, I mean, this guy is just on top of his game in everything. And that's sort of the vision that I have for every single one of my clients, is to be able to be proud of themselves in every single area of their life. So I coach what I like to call maximizers, and Max is definitely one of those guys. So he's been really crushing it, and I'm super proud.
Yeah, his name even fits it. He's got the max and maximize. There you go, dude.
Exactly.
All right, awesome, man. So I'm not going to make this whole podcast about bodybuilding, because, you know, people can jump right over to your channel and check out some of your videos. However, I think there's one valuable question that I believe can really deliver some goods. So that question is, what are the 3 biggest mistakes beginners should avoid when trying to get bigger muscles?
Oh boy, yeah, that's a really deep issue. I mean, we can boil it down to 3 things. And I first want to point out that there's so much bullshit out there that if we're just looking at things to avoid, we would have a 5-hour podcast, and I could rant on that for even longer than that. But I think 5 hours would be a minimum, with so much nonsense out there. Stuff like carbs make you fat, you know, like you need to run on an empty stomach, stuff like you need to mix it up in the gym, or you need to do CrossFit, or whatever the hell, you know, people say is the best one-size-fits-all solution. Recently it's been the keto diet. Before that it was the low-fat diet. You know, there's always some bullshit that people say that is the one solution that fits everybody, which so anybody with any kind of intelligent thinking, or you really take a step back and think a little bit, okay, there is no one size fits all. And sadly, we're in that industry where that is being promoted. Now, if I really had to boil it down to the 3 things why someone is not building muscle, which is a very specific thing, and I like that you specified that. Number 1 thing would probably be trying to wing it, you know, just doing random things without having a clear plan or a clear structure. I see that in the gym every single day. You know, guys do what they feel is going to work. So I feel I need to do chest today and my bicep, you know, and somehow they always feel like they need to do their chest and biceps because that's the most important muscle groups. And just going by the feeling without even tracking or measuring or following any kind of program, even if it's a poor program, it's still a program compared to just randomness. And we know, I mean, random actions basically lead to random results. And if I tell you right now, well, okay, so are you ever going to randomly get to 10% body fat, get completely shredded, and randomly build a ton of muscle? It's just not going to happen. It's similarly in business. I mean, you're not going to randomly just wake up one day and have a 7-figure business on you, right? I mean, it's just not going to happen. And I still see people trying to make it happen like that. So I think that was the biggest mistake that I've noticed across gyms. And I've been to more than 80 different gyms around the world. And this is pretty much a mistake that I see in every single country. And it's sort of like increased and blown to incredible proportions by the muscle magazines, by the websites now, by the articles, which are always giving you the best exercise. Now it's always this new thing that you need to try out. And guys are constantly switching their training plans. They're just not sticking to a clear structure, and they're just literally wasting their time. That is an absolute waste of time. I mean, you're getting healthier, but if your goal is just prove exercise, you're going to get some benefits. But if your goal is to actually get great results, it has to be a clear structure that you're following, whether it's any kind of program that you actually bought from a legit person, not some scammy guy on the internet, or whether it's hiring a coach or any kind of thing that you're following that has clarity in it, that is ultimately going to put you among the 5%. Now, the second biggest mistake I would say is not training progressively. By that, I mean that if you're, let's use the kilo system. Let's say you're squatting 80 kilos today, and you do that for 5 reps. If you're squatting 80 kilos for 5 reps 2 years from now, you're going to look the same. Like, your legs are not going to get any bigger. If you're benching 60 today and you're benching 60 in 2 years from now, you're not going to get a bigger chest. The body needs a reason to grow. And I think people miss this. And this sort of builds upon the point number 1, is that if you're doing random things and not measuring anything, there's no way you can be progressively training. And we know that progressive overload, training progressively, is absolutely the most important variable in fitness. If you're not challenging your body with something new, something more demanding over time, the body will not grow. Like, the body doesn't want to grow. The body doesn't want to carry around a bunch of muscle. I mean, having a big bicep or abs or chest, and it doesn't really do much for the body. You know, it would rather not have those things, because those things ultimately require energy to maintain. So in order to have that, you have to work for it, and you have to progressively work for it. So in order to keep the stimulants going, the training plan has to be sort of one step ahead of you. So the training plan has to always be challenging you and demanding a little bit more of you. And if at some point you overtrain a little bit, or you, what we call it, overreach, you can take a step back, do a little bit of lighter work, but then you go back in and you try to do more. It's always about more and more and more. And people don't like to hear this, because it's sort of like use it or lose it phenomenon, right? So if you train for 5 years progressively, if you really, really get in good shape, if you stop doing training entirely, you're going to lose that shape. Like, you're not going to be in the same shape. And that's only fair. That's how the world works, right? And the good side of it actually is that it's much easier to maintain than to keep pushing the boundaries. But it does have to be pushed. It does have to be challenging. Otherwise, you're literally just wasting your time in the gym. And this is the second biggest mistake that I see inside of the gym. The third one, and I will just simply relate nutrition and lifestyle in this case, is that at some point, I mean, just trying to wing it with your nutrition, not eating enough protein, and just, again, not being aware of what your amount of food that you need to grow is, and just not hitting that amount of food per day. I mean, there's no way you're just going to maximize your results by thinking your way to building muscle. The muscle does require some building block. It does require a sufficient amount of protein. It does require you to be on point with your nutrition and give it enough to grow. So give that permission to the body to grow. Now, I don't mean by that you should just drink a gallon of milk every single day, because that's probably going to lead to excess fat gain for most guys listening to this. And that's a second mistake, actually, which people try to force feed the gains, which is just not possible. In this, physiologically, you're not going to eat yourself to muscle. The food is more of a permission to grow, and then the stimulants has to come from training. And that's when you combine those two things can work out. But it's sort of like if you handle these three things, if you have a clear structure, if you're training progressively, and number three, if you're making sure that your nutrition is sort of on point, somewhere in a ballpark figure that your calories are leading to some form of gaining weight, and that your protein is high enough, somewhere about 2 to 2.5 grams per kilo is totally fine. Even 2 grams per kilo of body weight will do the trick. If you have those building blocks in place, then something can actually happen. And if that's not there, I mean, you could literally waste your time you could be spinning your wheels for years. And we see that, I mean, in the gym, most people that you go there and you see in your commercial gym right now, they're going to look the same 2 years from now. And they're screwing up one of these three, or they're screwing all three plus 50 other things.
Yeah, sure thing, dude. Thanks for that. Extremely valuable. So my next question is, now this doesn't have to directly relate to bodybuilding, but it can. But this is more of a general question. If you could only take 3 supplements, what would they be and why?
Right. I just want to make a clear statement here, is that supplements are sort of the cherry on top of a cake. And the cake is your overall nutrition plan. Supplements are not going to make or break your diet. Supplements are there just to potentially fill in some gaps, if the gaps are even there to begin with, which simply means that it just taking a boatload of supplements will do shit for you if you're not actually deficient in something, just to point that out. Now, supplements that might help in some cases, let's say if you're someone who doesn't get a lot of sun exposure, vitamin D is probably a good idea, and you can test that easily doing some blood work to see if your vitamin D levels are actually on point. And I do recommend doing some testing before you commit to taking some supplements. And this is not just from a standpoint of, okay, am I wasting money? It's more also from a standpoint, okay, there's potential side effects to everything that you do. So more is not better. So you do want to make sure that you're actually taking things that you do need. Now, from a performance enhancing standpoint, I mean, we have pretty good evidence. I mean, it's one of the most researched supplements of all time. We're talking about creatine monohydrate. It does work. I mean, we know it works for most people. There's obviously non-responders to creatine, meaning that you can take creatine and you just don't get anything out of it, which is there's a minority of people. I mean, they do respond like that. But for the vast majority, you're going to experience some form of performance enhancement from taking creatine monohydrate. The doses are not supposed to be some enormous dose of 20 grams a day or whatever. About 5 to 7 grams a day will do the trick for almost everybody. If you take it daily, eventually you're going to saturate enough, and taking more than that is just a waste of time. You don't need to take any other form of creatine monohydrate. Creatine monohydrate saturates your muscles 100%. Any other form, you just can't get more than 100%. So like if you take anything else, you're basically just wasting your money and buying into some random hype that doesn't do anything, right? So I would say vitamin D and creatine are two things that I do personally keep in my plan. And for those days that I don't get any sun, I do take about 2,000 IUs of vitamin D3. And that tends to really help, especially during the winter months. If you're in a Scandinavian country or somewhere like that where you barely get any sun, it does make a big difference in terms of mood, and it's going to improve your gains as well. Now, for the third supplement, I would say, I mean, there's a debate here. Okay, should you go for a multivitamin or should you take omega-3? I personally would say omega-3s, because most people will not be adhering to eating fish 2-3 times a week, oily fish and the right type. So they will not go for that. So omega-3s will probably be a good idea to supplement. And I mean, omega-3 fish oil. Multi is a good idea, but again, it should come from a place that you know that you're actually deficient in something. It's not that you're going to just shotgun approach your nutrition. I mean, it's not going to hurt. Most likely, if you just take a basic multivitamin, it's sort of like an insurance policy. If you take a cheap one, it's not going to do much. They're usually loaded with something that you don't even need, and then they're totally missing some other nutrients. And there's a whole debate. And that what we know, I mean, if we take a step back, we know that certain individuals will absorb different vitamins from food differently. So we know that there might be issues with you personally having issues with getting a certain vitamin. And if that's the case, and you can discover that by doing some blood work, then you should just target that specific thing that you're missing, because you might be hyper absorbing something else. You might be getting too much of something else. So adding more of that is probably not a good idea. So be a little bit strategic with it. Think about it as a system. It's not just, okay, I'm just going to throw random pills at it and it's going to fix it. That's not a good idea, right? So I'm just keeping it very basic. I mean, there's a bunch of other things we can talk about, but most of that stuff is just simple fluff and a waste of money.
Yeah, right, dude. Awesome. Now, the next thing here, you seem to be quite the guy on intermittent fasting. So just to give you some background on my own personal experience, back when I tried keto for the brain clarity benefits, I'm really into biohacking and things of that nature. And after 3 months, I ended up getting, I am one with really high metabolism. So like I can just fucking eat and eat and eat, and I just don't grow. Not that I've ever intentionally gone the whole bodybuilding route to get massive, but I know I can eat lots and lots, and I don't know, my body does something and I just don't gain. So of course I'd have to explore it more, but my point is that after 3 months, especially because I was on keto and I was doing intermittent fasting, you know, I became almost fucking bulimic, man. Like I look at the photos now and I think, holy shit, I was skinny. And so for that reason, I thought, yeah, maybe I'll just, maybe it was the keto, but maybe I'll stay away from intermittent fasting. Although I have seen that a lot of people are deriving huge benefits from it. So I'm just wondering, in general, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
It's a really, really good tool to use for fat loss for, I would say, most men out there in their early and late 20s. If you're just looking to get shredded, you're probably going to get some benefit from doing some form of intermittent fasting, whether it's skipping breakfast or skipping dinner or whatever you want to kind of frame it as. It depends, but having a certain window where you eat your food on a fat loss diet can actually help you adhere to the caloric deficit better, which is really exciting, right? It's meaning that basically you can have bigger meals if you restrict your meal frequency to eating 3 times a day in a 8 to 9 hour window. You're going to have bigger meals, right? Because you eat only 3 times. And if you have 2,500 calories, that's a pretty decent amount of calories. Even if you have 2,000 calories, 3 meals is much better than, let's say, if you eat 5 meals and you have 400 calories per meal, which is a joke, right? 400 calories is just it's a rabbit food, right? You can't eat anything for that amount of calories. So I'm a proponent of intermittent fasting for a certain demographic that I find it as that would benefit most out of it. I would say that people should try it out and they should give it about a month to see how they respond to this meal frequency kind of a change or hack, however you want to call it. Most people I find that respond by becoming less hungry. They become more in tune of when they actually experience hunger, what is real hunger or what is just hunger that kind of comes and then it goes away if you just ignore it for 30 minutes, because a lot of that is something that we've been trained to experience. I mean, a lot of, I'm not really a fan of breakfast cereal or breakfast selling companies. I'm a pretty, associated with a very negative thing with terms of marketing, because I see a lot of it being marketed still as, oh, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You know, everybody should eat breakfast, which is just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, nothing is going to happen if you skip breakfast. You know, like the human body is not magically designed to have to eat breakfast every single day. And I mean, we do have really strong marketing on the fact that we should eat breakfast. So when intermittent fasting became popular back in the day, it was a really welcome idea, looking at it from a more scientific standpoint rather than, okay, let's just follow whatever conventional wisdom is, which is just eat 6-7 meals a day to boost your metabolism, whatever the hell people were thinking back then. And I was one of those people. And when fasting came in, we started realizing, well, it's more about a daily amount of calories and how you get your protein or your other macronutrients throughout the entire day, rather than what happens within a couple of hours, which was very liberating compared to going out and having to carry a bunch of Tupperware with chicken, broccoli, and rice in it, and then just eating every 2-3 hours, which sucked, right? I did it, and it's terrible for your lifestyle. I mean, you're carrying like almonds into the club, and you're just chewing on almonds because you don't want to go catabolic. It's just a bunch of bullshit. But it was really all around the place. I mean, you couldn't find anything that would go against that. And luckily now, I mean, people that are just getting into the health and fitness field, we have so much good science. And I mean, I've been deep into the research for a couple of years now. We have so many good papers. We know some of these things that what works. We know what doesn't work. I mean, we know, for example, that intermittent fasting probably doesn't have any magical benefits on top of the fact that it just gets you easier in a caloric deficit. And it just, for some people, it's an easier way to stay with those low calories and feel less hungry and just not have to think about food for a while. And that's one of the biggest benefits for me and why I do it. Let's say if I'm on a cut or if I'm on a fat loss phase, I will delay that first meal for a few hours. And I find that during this time, I'll be more focused. I'm not going to think about food. I'm just going to skip it, get to my first meal, have the first meal, open up that 8-hour window and save up those calories for post-workout, and I'm going to eat most of them then. And it tends to work really, really well. And I don't feel hungry outside of the window. I can go to bed at night. I don't feel like I have to eat something right before bed because that would always keep me up at night. I respond really terribly to having food before bed. And I think most people do, like having a straight big meal right before you hit the bed. And I think that is sort of the summary of it. It's no magic pill, but it does tend to help a lot of people, especially guys, stay with a caloric deficit easier. And it's definitely something I think everybody should try out. And it's super easy to try it out. I mean, you literally just have to not do something, which is not eat. And it does also play around on a different level, which I think is pretty cool. It's just training us to be a little bit less bound to always being very comfortable with a full belly. And I think that's something that in today's world, I mean, we're only in 2017, we're used to comfort, right? We're like, okay, where's my food? I feel a little bit hungry. Bam, I have to eat something. I feel a little bit cold. Let's adjust the air conditioner. I feel a little bit uncomfortable. Let's sit on a more comfortable chair. Like we're so used to having comfort immediately when we want it that I feel like incorporating some form of fasting. And I personally have one day of the week where I just completely fast or just eat maybe 600-700 calories, just to get myself out of the state where I'm super comfortable. Because when I'm always super, super, super comfortable, it's just very easy to fall into that. And it just kind of starts influencing you in other areas of your life. And you're just seeking that comfort. You become this comfort seeking creature, which I think intermittent fasting is one form where it can help on a daily basis, just to get out of that mind, out of that space where you're just like, oh, when is going to be the next meal, and you can just focus on something else.
Sweet as. So much value. Love it, dude. Really inspiring me to try it again, despite not being keto. I reckon there could be some huge benefits based on what you've said. So anyway, my next question, that's what I was going to ask. So I was going to touch on this, but it came up while I've been listening to you. And I'm curious, Mario, could you walk us through how you made your first $100 online?
Oh boy, that was a really hard $100. That was a really tough one. Back in when I had the government job, so I had a government job, was sort of like a salary that was intermittently coming into the bank account, was never really sure whether it's going to come or not, and it was really difficult. I mean, that was always, fear. Oh, am I going to have enough to buy chicken and broccoli and rice? Because back in the day, I was on the pro diet, and I would actually be borrowing money sometimes just to pay for food. And it was really something that I think leveraged a lot of why I decided to push myself and to learn internet marketing and to get into this, is just the fact that I felt that a 20-something guy shouldn't be begging money from people to pay for food. Right? It's not supposed to work like that when you know that you have the potential to learn anything. And I realized that it's just a fact that I don't know certain things that can generate that income. So when I thought about what I wanted to do, I realized a big problem is that my English is not very good. So my English was terrible, right? And if you want to make money online, back in the day, like a couple of years, even now, I mean, if you try to do it in Croatian, it's going to be a really, really, really hard time. Like most people didn't buy anything on the internet 5 years ago. Like you can just not simply find anything. Like you will not buy, like there's no online stores in Croatia. So I had to first learn English. How do you learn English? Well, you can go through textbooks and you can play courses. You can do all this other nonsense. What I actually did is I went on a website called Fiverr.com, which is basically where people will just do whatever you tell them to do. And what their offers are for $5. So you pay $5 and they have all these gigs, and some of them edit photos, some of them redesign something, some of them will, give you something like a spreadsheet, organize it, whatever it is. And what I decided to do is I decided to write articles for 500 to 750 words, unique articles on any topic you want for $5. Right, so whatever you want, like I don't care. Like if you give me, write an article about water on Mars, I will have to write an article on water on Mars for $5, right? And I had a package, I think, because when I first started out, the only way to compete was really to just, number one, over deliver and undercut your competition. So I was actually writing 3 articles, 500 to 750 words on any topic for $5, right? So literally, I was getting paid 30 cents per hour to do that because it takes me 3 hours to write one single article, and I would get $3 out of those 5 because Fiverr takes $1, PayPal takes $1. So I was literally just doing it almost for no money whatsoever. But just putting myself in that position, in 1 to 2 months, I just 10x my English skills. It was incredible. I mean, I would get orders from companies from the UK or bloggers. They would say like, okay, let's do reviews on casserole stuff, or barbecue stuff. I had no freaking clue. So what I had to do is get really, really good at researching what those products were and how to actually write a unique article based on an opinion. So I had to form an opinion. I had to make it sense, and it would have to go to a native English audience. So I had a really large amount of pressure on myself, and that just instantly 10x my English skills within a couple of months. And then I started obviously working on more stuff and expanding my internet marketing knowledge. I went into becoming a consultant in terms of social media. I started generating content online. I started my blog, writing in English. And it just all started from there. But the first $100 was made literally by writing articles. That was revenue. I think profit out of that was like $10 by the time I had finished it. But it really taught me a lot. And I thought that making money, it wasn't a lot of money, but in my mind, it was just that I broke through a barrier where I was just, where everybody was telling me, look, it's not possible to do this. Like, it's not possible to actually make $1 online fair without tricking someone into something. And I think that was a really big thing. Plus, I learned a lot just by dealing with those people, with those companies. I've realized how they operate, and I started offering some of my services outside of Fiverr and social media. And I got a little gig there for one company in Cyprus, which was a terrible gig. I mean, they totally exploited me. They didn't even pay me at the end. I think I earned like maybe $50 from that, and for like 2 months of work.
Wow.
But I learned a lot of lessons from there, and it made me qualified to actually talk about certain things because I was learning a lot. And I always thought of it as sort of a learning lesson versus like, okay, earning money. I always thought about it as, okay, what can I learn from it that is a skill? Because I did have some, you don't really need that much to survive in a sort of like a poorer country, right? You don't really need to pay rent. I was living with my parents, so I could afford to just focus on skills. And in general, I was a minimalist. I don't really own anything, so it was kind of I guess a blessing in disguise. It's just that I could go through this process and just get into internet marketing. But eventually, all this really made me who I am today, right? So I wouldn't really change any of that.
Wow, incredible! Yeah, it's definitely a real struggle to hit your first 100, even like 1,000 to reach your first $1,000. It man, you go through some shit. Like I remember just fucking like trying to get into like domain flipping where you flip domain names, and I just wasted a bunch of money on some shit stuff, bought courses, never executed on them, just didn't take it seriously, dabbled with the whole fucking ebook publishing, made a little bit of dollars, but it does take a while. So for listeners listening in, if you're curious about that, it definitely takes time. Yeah. Like, how long did it take you, Mario, to then reach your first $1,000?
I didn't make $1,000 until I was actually gone through I think I actually went through multiple internships, and one of the internship was with Real Social Dynamics for I think I worked for 3 months for free, and that's what everybody has to go through. I was actually doing parallel internships for other 2 companies, so I was doing 3 internships at the same time, and also have my day job. At my day job, I would finish everything in 1 hour, and then spend the next 7 hours on these internships, and I was sleeping about 4 or 5 hours on average, and try to catch up on the weekends. So I was like going through that phase, and I think that whole thing lasted about 5 months. I think after, about 5 to 6 months, where it was like a straight up grind. And then when I started working for RSD, I just finally crossed over that threshold. And that was just crazy, man. I was just completely like, I was seeing all these options. My mind was totally blown. I was like, oh my God, you can actually do this, and you can travel, and you can do this from anywhere. And it was just crazy, because that was literally a life-changing moment. So the first part is really a grind. And I think that it's supposed to be like that. And I think that if I didn't have the skills, I would not have made it at all. And the fact is that now you get all these people. Now I have a business, and I employ people, and you have all these people reaching out, and they're like, oh man, I want to work for you. And you just email them back, well, what do you know how to do? Well, I don't know anything, but I'm willing to learn whatever it takes. Well, you don't really, plus, they're like, okay, I'm going to work for this amount of money as well, right? They just squeeze that in there. Look, if you don't have any skills, like, your time is worth zero. And it's not even zero. It's like actually minus, because you're taking away time and focus from something else. So really think about it from a perspective of what can you bring to the world? Like, what is your mastery? What is the thing that you want to invest in? What is the thing you want to become a genius at? And freaking do that. Because if you don't, and if you can't bring any value to the world, back in RSD for the internship, I launched Inner Circle. Like, the people see like Inner Circle groups now all over the world. It's like all over Facebook, and people are talking about it, raving about it. It's very famous. That was a 100K launch, and I did it for free as an intern, among with other people. Obviously, I worked with Nico and Todd and all the other people that were involved back then. But that was like 8 hours of work a day, and I did it as an intern. And I had to learn pretty much 80-90% of that stuff was totally new to me. I had to learn how to build a WordPress site. I had to learn how to operate a cart, how to process payments, how to refund, how to do customer support, how to actually come up with the whole idea, right? So you got to be able to bring that much value to someone if you want to work for them, or if you want to work for yourself. You better have some skill to bring to the table. And I think even starting off as an entrepreneur, it's probably a good idea to go into a company that knows what the hell they're doing, and then learn how stuff works from them, and then start off as doing something your own, at least in today's world, because the competition to enter a space is really, really strong. You're going to have a hard time entering any kind of field if you're looking for big niches. Let's say dating, business, or health. You're going to have a really hard time entering that niche if you don't have any skills. You're basically going to not make it. There's no way you're going to make it if you don't have skill. So skill is absolutely critical. And that is something that I would attribute pretty much everything that I've ever achieved, is simply realizing, well, I need to invest in skills, and just need to get better at certain critical things, which are, in today's world, sales and marketing are the most important ones. And then the other stuff is secondary. If you want to be an employee, sales and market, or freelancer, sales and marketing are probably going to be your best bets, or design or copywriting. But that kind of that can fall under sales or marketing as well. I would say that's kind of a tangent there, but I just wanted to point that out, because I know a lot of people will consider the answer to be very vague. If I tell them, 4 or 5 months, $1,000. Look, that is 4 to 5 months of fucking grinding. It's not just like the $1,000 magically came from the air. You have to learn a lot of shit. Like, you have to learn how to use Adobe Premiere in 1 week. like to an advanced level. Photoshop in 1 week, someone tells, hey, build me a WordPress website. You don't even know what the word WordPress means. You Google it and you realize that it's this complex system, and you just have to figure the shit out, and just willing to figure it out and learn from failure and just dedicate yourself to it, immerse yourself to it, and cut out pretty much everything else, because at that point you need to, is something that I look for now in people that I hire, is that they have to have that kind of attitude. And I'm not afraid to throw people in the deep end of the pool, a very, very cold pool, just to see if they can just swim out and succeed. And if they don't, I don't hire them. Like if you don't have the skill, I just won't hire you.
Okay, sure. And to clarify, when you did an internship at RSD, you were doing the marketing, right?
I was hired as an assistant for pretty much everything.
Right.
Like we don't really. I mean, back in the company when I was there as an intern, I was like, look, I was hired as a social media assistant. What I did is like, look, guys, like if you need me to fly there and clean toilet seats, I'll fucking do it. Like
you fucking legend.
Do whatever it takes. Like I'll do whatever it takes. Because when you're hired for an internship, nobody's expecting you to do more than 10, 15 hours a week. And I was knocking out 40 plus hours every single week on top of everything else. And that's the only way to actually stand out, because you don't get hired otherwise. I mean, the hiring rate for any company is going to be below 10%. Like nobody wants to hire more people. They hire more people if they can see that those people will provide 10 times more value than the salary that you would pay those people. I'm like that as well. Like I'm not going to hire someone and just to waste time. It's going to be someone who's going to bring 10 times more, and someone who's actually there that is making something happen. So in RSD, as I said, as an intern, you are expected to do 10, 15 hours. But if you can do 40, you actually have a chance. The 10, 15 hours is just a joke. Like that's just to weed out the dabblers. Like if you actually want to make it, you will do 40 plus. And you're not just going to do the thing that you're told to do. You're going to find things to do. Like you're going to discover shit to do that needs to get done. And you're going to like send out 15 emails to someone who's like on a very high position, and they're not even going to reply to you. And they're going to reply to you in email 16 and say, oh, yeah, this is actually a good idea. I didn't even open your email for the first 15 times because you're just an intern and I don't give a fuck. Right. So you have to be the one who is the pusher. Right. And if you're the pusher, if you're constantly pushing, and you're bringing the ideas, you're bringing the enthusiasm and the motivation, that is also valuable on top of everything else that you're doing, if that makes sense.
Sure. Smart man, Mario. Smart man. Now, one more question before we move into the Tim Ferriss questions. And that is, sort of a hit and miss, but do you have any experience with psychedelic compounds as a tool for self-growth?
Absolutely none. I haven't even looked into the research on any of that stuff. So I'm not the right type of person to talk about that. I definitely have no clue.
Sure thing, dude. I always try to get a hit with any guest I have. It's just like a fascinating topic. The more I delve into it. So anyway, no worries there. The next set of questions, the Tim Ferriss questions. These are always a bit of fun. So here we go, Mario. Number one, what is something you believe that other people think is insane?
Okay, so that is a pretty damn hard question. So so here's the belief that I have that I think most people will think is insane. I think everything is my fault. And I'll explain to what that means. So I got into a car accident 2 years ago, right? And the drunk driver passed through a red light and literally hit me on my side. I hit the brake and I stopped a little bit before. So he hit the tire. He didn't directly hit me in my door, where I probably wouldn't made it, right? Maybe I would, but probably would affect my squat pretty significantly.
Sure.
Which would suck, right? So because I love to lift. Lifting is sweet. So I mean, in that situation, what most people will do is sort of like, okay, it's his fault. He's the drunk driver. He sucks, like he needs to go to prison, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like actually saying to everybody, it's like, okay, look, it's my fault. Like, it's my fucking fault. Like, I need to like make the best out of this. I need to do something. And I say it's my fault, not because realistically it is, but it's just a fact that that's the only way I can get something out of it. Like I can then actually do something about it. I can act on it in some way. I can figure stuff out. If I would say, okay, it's not my fault, I immediately relieve myself of all kinds of responsibility. And this happens in pretty much anything. I try to take responsibility for pretty much everything that happens, even though it's like clearly not my fault. But I feel like if I do that, it just gives me the power and the control. I take back control over the situation, and I don't feel bad, or if I don't feel like, oh, I'm just being victimized or some other bullshit story that we tell ourselves. So it is my fault, even though it's clearly not my fault. And most people think this is completely crazy, especially like my friends and family.
Awesome, man. Now, if you're a reader and you've read some books, I'm curious, disregard this question if you don't read, but what is the book that's had the biggest impact on your life?
Well, I mean, out of the 400 books that I read in the last, I would say, 7 years, the one book that I tend to recommend the most to people is the book called No Excuses by Brian Tracy, because I feel like it's a very nice intro to personal development, and it just gives you a right frame of mind. If I had to pick one book, that would be an impossible mission. Like I could not pick one single book, because the book itself maybe just struck a specific chord with me at that time. Maybe if I read it now, it wouldn't be as much. And I hate to say that, but it's like reading a book right now, if you don't resonate with it, that doesn't mean that the book is bad. It just means that the book is not the right book for you at that specific time. And if you read a lot, you'll notice that even rereading a certain book, it's just an entirely different book. So, I mean, it's just impossible to pick one that you could say, okay, this is the end all be all. I mean, I think the No Excuses by Brian Tracy is very general, and I just like his mindset when it comes to success in general. And I would say that's one of the most inspirational ones. And there's a bunch of other ones. I mean, we can just go into the entire podcast on that. But there's that one I tend to just throw around as a present, as a gift, as a Kindle book or whatever else format people like it as an audio, just because I think it's a really cool book.
Awesome, man. Now, we don't need to go into huge detail, but I am actually curious about a few others that you have in mind, that come to mind.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for recommendations, I can throw around a few things that I read recently. One really nice one is called Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed. It's one book that I resonate with a lot. It is sort of almost like a confirmation bias book, where it is so much about being real with yourself and being able to see the reality for what it really is. And it sort of builds upon another book that is called The Checklist Manifesto, which I would also recommend. I implement a lot of checklists with my client work and with my personal productivity, and I think it's one of the best tools that one can use, because our minds are not as focused as we think. So checklists tend to help and keep us in line. Other books, I would say, since we're on the topic of Matthew Syed, his book Bounce is really good if you're looking for just a general book on success and on deliberate practice. Highly recommended. I mean, there's a bunch of other ones. I mean, if you want to read a book that is sort of interesting from a standpoint of just happiness, or just what it means to be happy, you can read The Happiness Hypothesis. That is a really nice book. There's also Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert. I mean, there's so many that I could go into for, let's say, more physiology and sort of how the human body works. The Story of the Human Body by Daniel Lieberman is really nice. From, I would say, from the marketing standpoint, there's a really nice book by Perry Marshall called 80-20 Sales and Marketing. Charles Duhigg has great books like The Power of Habit. I mean, there's just so many, like Inner Game of Tennis, if you're looking for performance and mindset by Timothy Galloway. That's an amazing book. And yeah, man, a bunch of other things. I mean, in terms of overeating and nutrition, The Hungry Brain by Stefan Guyenet. I've had a pleasure of interviewing him a few months ago, and he's a really cool guy, obesity researcher. His book is fantastic, and it's very friendly for a wide audience. There's a bunch of other ones. I mean, it depends on the niche, really, of what you're interested in. But I read a lot, so I go through 2-3 books a week. So
yeah,
pretty much anything. Yeah, just if you need a list, just let me know.
Too easy, bro. Absolutely love it. Yeah, we're all big book lovers here at 1% Better, including myself. So fantastic. I'll definitely put some of those recommendations onto my big fucking huge to read list, and we'll get to them eventually. How do you actually choose your books?
So the way I choose books is something I'm not sure if it's an original or it probably isn't, but I like to look at it from a standpoint, okay, what is the thing that I'm trying to master right now in my life? So am I trying to become better at copywriting, or am I trying to become better at understanding how the human mind works, or is it the mindset, or is it the neuroscience? What is it that I'm currently thinking about without looking at the books? And then I take a book from that field, and that makes the book more digestible for me. And I can plow through some of the parts of the book that might not normally resonate with me, but because I'm so interested in the topic, I'll be actually able to go through it. So an example, I tried to read The Power of Now a couple of years back. It's Eckhart Tolle. I'm pretty sure you know who that is. Yeah. So I took the book and I started reading the book, and I went through about 40, 50 pages, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, why are people raving about this? Like, what is the big deal, right? Like,
same as me, bro.
Like, you're mindful. So what? Like, fuck off. I want to grind, like I want to work. And at that point, I was like, okay, this book is just Eckhart Tolle. This is a scam, right? I mean, it's literally scamming people. And I went back to the book 2 years afterwards, and I was just, I was super burnt out from work and grinding. I was just like 10xing everything. It was like hustle, barely getting any sleep. And I was like, okay, let me just try to listen to the audio of The Power of Now, just to listen to it, because I think I read somewhere that just listening to the audio of Eckhart Tolle, he has this calming voice or whatever it is. And man, I started listening to the audio version. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, this is the best book ever. And it's just the book that I just needed at that moment in time. And I could literally resonate with almost everything that he said. And I was like, holy shit, like, was I an idiot? Like, what did I because I was telling people, like, okay, Eckhart Tolle, like, just skip that, like, go to someone else, who's more practical. And I realized that it's much more nuanced in just the way I perceive the reality. And at that point, you want to pick a book that it kind of goes hand in hand with that, or even a book that challenges your current reality is a good idea. Right? So be open to being challenged. Sometimes I'm gonna read a book that is that I don't agree with, and I'll just read the fucking book because I don't agree with what the book is actually trying to say, but it's gonna challenge me to think differently. So I'm going to be open to being challenged, which is a really, really key point, especially if you're in a big niche like health and fitness. You have to have an open mind. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of science out there, and the science is amazing. But if you don't have an open mind, if you're willing to accept the facts and admit, okay, look, the thing that you got out of context, or even if it wasn't out of context 4 years ago that I said in a YouTube video, maybe it's false, right? Maybe new science, new data came out and it said that you don't need to do that. And shit, I was wrong, right? It's important to be able to say that. And I think that's one thing that you will instantly know who you can learn from and who can't. If someone never, ever, ever admits that they are wrong, that they've been wrong in the past, I don't trust those people. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a quick tangent here. When I go to a doctor, I think people resonate with that. When I go to a doctor, this is what I do. I mean, if you want to piss your doctor off, you can try it out. I ask them, when did they make their last mistake? How long has it been? Doctors fucking hate this. Like, they will hate you. But the reason why I'm asking that question is that if they're not willing to tell me that they've ever made a mistake, I'll go to a different doctor. Because that is not a doctor I can trust. Because I know how the human mind works. And I think we all will admit that we're all human and nobody's perfect. And we know that. And if the doctor in that situation is not willing to admit that they've been wrong at some point in their life, like, even if they can't tell you, okay, I've been wrong, they are full of shit, and run away from them. Like, they will not help you. Right? So that's one thing that I use as a test for doctors, dentists, any kind of practitioner. And if somebody's not willing to admit they've been wrong, it's not a good person to work with or have anything to do with.
Wow, wow, wow. Mario, you have blown my mind. I've been sitting here in awe. Now, to the listeners listening in, I highly recommend you rewind your podcast wherever the fuck you are right now. You're in the daily commute, you're in the train, you're on the bus, you're in bed. Please skip back the past 5 minutes, rewind it, and listen to what Mario just said. That is incredible, Mario. You are a very intelligent man. You've really just hit the nail on the core reason why I actually run this fucking podcast behind everything I do, and that is to promote open-mindedness. And that example you gave right there, a bit earlier on, where you said, you know, I'm just going to fucking read something I disagree with. I'm going to challenge my own beliefs. That is the core message of what I really want to promote here at 1% Better. So I'm just so glad you said that, Mario. And that just really hypes me up, as you can tell. So, and even the doctor thing, holy shit, like that is just pure value. Thanks for that, Mario.
Yeah, you're gonna piss people off, by the way. So use it wisely. Be very polite. You know, don't go running away to a doctor now. Like you're wrong. You know, like no, just be very smart about it and come from it from a position of sort of understanding and empathy. And it actually is a very, very valuable tool. So yeah, don't piss off people just for the sake of pissing them off, because you can, but it's not really gonna do much.
Yeah, sure thing. That was just fucking awesome. All right. Next question here, Mario, is if you were to put a message on a billboard next to a busy highway, what would you put on that billboard?
Oh man, that's a quite of interesting thing. I would actually run Facebook ads probably, because nobody's watching it through billboards. But
Fuck yeah,
that's just my opinion. Like those I don't even see the billboards anymore. But yeah, I mean, if I had to, you know, what I would put on the billboard is a very interesting concept. Is that I would sort of like put a countdown timer. And I would have the countdown timer is sort of like seconds left to live for an average person. And just it would count down every time you pass. It would just like keep counting down. So if you're stuck in traffic, and if you hate your life, you hate your job, you hate everybody, and you just don't know how the hell that I ended up winning, you're going to saw that billboard and it's going to be like ticking down. And that's probably going to motivate you to get out of that car and probably like sell the car and just do something you love and pursue your like passion. Because like the thing is, like, we don't realize how little time we have. And to be fair, we do realize, but when we realize at that point, it's already too late. And there's nothing that is more important than just making the best out of what you have here on the planet, which is a very, very insignificant amount of time. And I think that would probably resonate with some people, and it's a sort of a taboo topic to talk about. And I actually talked about this in a few seminars. Is I would do like I'll just take a person from the audience, and what I'll do is like, okay, how old are you? You know, and they're like, okay, I'm 25. You know, average, let's say you live up to 80. You have about 55 years left. You know, times 365. That's how many days you have, and you do like times hours, times seconds, and people are like, holy shit. You know, I don't have that much left, you know, like, I mean, maybe I have like a very little amount of days left. And just from a standpoint, you put it into a number, you know, it's like, oh my God, you know, it's like, I don't have that much time left. So better start doing something. And I think this sense of urgency is almost forgotten, because we're looking at our clocks and it's all like going forward, you know, so we feel like we're winning. You know, every day it was like, you feel like you're winning. Yo, we'll celebrate. Let's 2018, 2019, 2020. We're celebrating. We're gaining something. In reality, we're actually going backward to ash, basically. So, if we had our clocks a little bit going downwards, imagine how I was thinking about patenting this. Actually, is that take a clock and the clock wouldn't go forward, but it would go backwards every day. You know, it would just tell you, okay, look, you have 6 hours left before like midnight, and it would just light a fire under your ass. So I think the billboard might do the trick, but as I said, I'd run Facebook ads for it. I think ads are just more more effective.
Wow, perhaps one of the best answers I've ever had for that question. You're just pushing all my buttons today, Mario. Jeez. Next one. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months?
It would just be audiobooks, man. Like, I think audiobooks are just priceless. I mean, they cost less than 100 each, and that's amazing. And it's just fascinating to me that I can literally just go in and spend $10 and get someone's 40 years of experience in a couple of hours, condensed and edited and properly. I mean, it's just amazing. I would say it's probably the Audible subscription, right? That's what I attribute pretty much that to. I would say nothing else.
Yeah, oath, dude. And even Max said the exact same thing. And, just crazy amounts of value. You can get like an audiobook for, I don't know, like $15, I reckon, if you sign up, and you can, get like 5 or 6 books and then listen to those books, I don't know, while you work out, while you exercise. You can leverage your time that way too. So yeah, awesome, man. My next question is, what is the best or most worthwhile investment you've made? Now that could be an investment of money, time, energy, or any other resource.
You mean it's an investment in sort of like that I got most out of it or something?
Pretty much. Like, in terms of total value added to your life, what is the best investment that you've put forth? So whether it costed you money, time, or energy, what's the single best thing that's given you like the highest ROI?
I'd say that's a really, really tough question, because what do you define as ROI is also a thing, and also it depends on the area of life. Overall, I would say just the biggest investment that is sort of just taking control back over my time. When I first quit my job, and before I did that, I just didn't feel like I have control over my time. And as soon as I got that, then I could make more out of my time, because we all make a certain thing out of the 24 hours that we have, and we all have our 24 hours. And taking control over that 24 hours and really structuring it properly, so you have 8-9 hours of sleep, 1 to 2 hours for exercise, 1 hour for nutrition and food preparation, all this other stuff, and the other stuff for work and some playtime. And you really make sure that your day is compact. That's where the ROI comes. And it sort of comes in ways that you don't really notice at first when you start doing your days really properly and you start getting most out of them. But it really compounds over time. So you look back a couple of years and you're like, oh my God, I just tripled my business. I went from like 0 countries and I'm now in 46. And it just all came down really to just playing those days a little bit better, like just having that 10 minutes before you go to bed, or sometime when you just look at, okay, what am I actually going to do the next day? Don't be in reaction to life, but actually be the one who is proactive, who is making stuff happen. And just being in that reactive state, I used to be there. And I mean, man, like, it's a very miserable way to live, because you look back and it's like, okay, what happened last year? I just wasted a year of my life and I didn't move any single bit forward. And just being that proactive mindset, I mean, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I mean, if I just have to look at it, something that is really general, that really helped me do pretty much everything, that would be it. I mean, obviously in different areas in business or in relationships or health, that might be different, or mindfulness or whatever. But as a general point, I would say that's the highest leverage, is being very proactive about your time instead of living in reaction.
Awesome, dude. Love it. Next one. What topic would you speak about if you are asked to give a TED Talk on something outside of your main area of expertise?
Right. So if you consider my main area of expertise to be fitness and health, which is something that I've been immersed in for about 4 to 5 years now, I'd probably talk more about mindset and just behavior change in general, is how to actually change who you are, if that makes sense. So change who you think you are, because we all have a story that we tell ourselves who we are. someone tells themselves, well, I'm the overweight person and I just can't do this. Or you tell yourself, well, I'm just doing this and everything. That's my business. You're not actually changing that identity very often. And I think that the change of identity is a very critical point at which, even if you achieve success in a single area of your life, even if you accomplish something, if you don't actually become that person, you're going to get pulled back to whatever you think you deserve. So you can get completely shredded. I've seen examples of this. People will lose like 40, 50 pounds of fat, and they're going to do this fitness thing for 6 months, but they're still going to come from it from a perspective of, well, I'm just doing this until I get that. It's not that they're actually changing who they are on an identity level. And until you change who you are on an identity level, no thing that you're doing is going to be sustainable. And I would probably give a talk on on very practical ways how to change your self-image and how to become that person that doesn't miss workouts, how to become that person that is healthy because they want to, not because they feel like they have to. The person that goes to bed because they just want to do that, goes to bed on time because they know that if they do that, they're going to get this and this, and they're going to improve their life. It's not that they're forced by it because they read a biohacking book or because they want to be cool on Instagram. It's more like they just want to do it because they're just that type of person. Like I'm that type of person that, okay, I just don't skip workouts. It's not that I think about it anymore. It's just who I am. Once you get to that level, it's simply just becoming automatic. That thing that you're doing is becoming automatic. So I think that's one of probably the topic that I would explore the most.
Yeah, radical, dude. So last Tim Ferriss question here. Do you have a quote you live your life by or think about often?
Yeah, it's the one that man can't remake himself without suffering because he's both the marble and the sculptor. That's my favorite quote of all time.
Kill it, bro. So now I've just got 2 questions for you as we come to a finish before we do the closing. And yeah, I'll probably cut this out the podcast because these are more just for you. But number 1 is, do you have any feedback about this podcast in terms of how I've interviewed you? It's more of a conversation, but how I've interviewed you and the process leading up to coming on this podcast. Is there anything I can do to improve?
I think you nailed it, man. I've been on a lot of podcasts. I've been probably about 30 plus podcasts. And I think that's, you got it. In terms of other things, usually what I get asked, I would say that I think is pretty cool is people ask me for recommendations for who I would think that would be a nice guest for your podcast. So people usually get suggestions like that. And in terms of other stuff, your communication is pretty clear in terms of emails. I think, you're on time. Your technical stuff is all okay, which is a big problem. Like most people don't know that, but it's actually like a lot of podcasts that you go through is that there's always some technical stuff that could have been easily fixed by just 5 minutes beforehand and some preparation. So props for handling all of that. So I think you're really on point. And I'm happy to be here. And it's super, super smooth. And it's a great experience.
Oh, dope, dude. That feedback's really valuable. Yeah, my next question actually is do you know anyone that you think would be a great fit for this podcast? Because, we are getting 10,000 new people every month. Not that everyone will convert from the channel to the podcast, but a significant portion, I think. So I'm just curious, do you know of anyone that would benefit from that exposure and benefit from, a real nice, chill conversation like this?
Well, depends on what type of niche you're looking for or who are you looking to sort of interview. Have you, I could connect you with my buddy Julian from RSD as well. He's pretty cool. He's really, really big on fitness, and now it's in terms of he's following the program. I've been coaching him for a while. You probably know him, right? The RSD Julian.
Yeah, he
might be a really good add-on to the podcast because he's really super deep into personal development and also is from a more of a spiritual happiness standpoint.
Okay.
I think you would get a lot of value from him, and I can easily connect you. As far as other guys, there's a bunch of other people that I can connect you from the fitness space or from any other space. Depends on really where do you want to take it. What are some of the topics that you want to talk about?
Sure. So the overarching theme is self-development. That's the broad scope, right? And that's what we've talked about today, a lot of these self-development topics, because my brand name is 1% Better. How can we make our lives 1% better? Because if you become 1% better every day, by the end of the year, you'll be 38 times better because of exponential growth. So it just sort of runs off that rule. But more niche down, in terms of who we've had on the podcast so far, a lot of them have been on really unconventional topics regarding self-development. So that's why I asked you about psychedelic compounds as a tool for spiritual growth. I also believe NoFap, it is quite a niche-y thing, and it's unconventional compared to the typical success principles, right? So that's what I'm really after. And also like dating even, like it's sort of more niched down rather than just general success principles. So that's kind of what I'm after, unconventional side of self-development.
That sounds good, man. I mean, in self-development, you should definitely talk to my buddy John Sonmez from Simple Programmer. I actually uploaded a podcast with him that we did from my channel, and I went on an interview for his channel as well. He's pretty big. I can connect you with him on Facebook. If we connect on Facebook, I can create a group chat and just get you on there. Yep. Julian would be a great addition. I think he's a really, really smart guy from a general self-development perspective, as well as from being unconventional. I think you can't get better than that in terms of just like challenging the beliefs and other things. And I can also give some thought. I mean, my buddy Timothy Mark, he's pretty cool in terms of business, and he was pretty big in self-development. Now he's more into business. Not exactly sure if he would fit the bill, but there's so many. I mean, people I can just definitely stay in touch. Depends how many recommendations you're looking for. I can go through some of my people that I communicate with regularly, but definitely Julian and John Sonmez. I think they would add an incredible amount of value to your podcast. I think they would just blow minds all around the place.
Fuck yeah, I am dead keen, Mario. I tell you what I might do is then just chuck. Now I know your time is valuable, and you don't want to shit around with it. So I'd love to add you via Facebook. I'm Brandon Nankervo on there with a big colorful fucking picture. So that's what to look out for. And yeah, if you could put in a word whenever you get time, or if you don't have time, then just send me some contact details or something. That's something I'd really appreciate.
Yeah, man, I'll definitely put you in touch. So be sure to, and not exactly if you can send me a friend request, which sucks because I get clogged up on friend requests. So send me a link to your profile, and I'll try to add you. Yep. Because sometimes I get an issue because I just can't accept any more friend requests. Is it because of the spam bots and in general? Yeah. So that would be probably the best option. And other than that, I mean, I usually do a lot of podcasts, so there's a bunch of guests always coming from all directions. So that'll be pretty cool. I'll be sure to send some your way.
All right, awesome, dude. In that case, I'll send you an email immediately after this call, and then send you maybe a Facebook fucking my link to my Facebook. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to get those boys on here. Massive value, and you've got my back for the future, because we're just growing and growing. So if you ever want some more promotion for your shit, and then you've got my back in the future.
Sweet, man. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and thanks for the invite, and really a pleasure. As I said, I mean, you really nailed the topics. You really went everything. The questions are awesome, and you're on point with your game. So yeah, happy to be here.
Fuck yeah, dude. All right, let's round this off. So that's pretty much it. Now, to the listeners listening in, we just had a short intermission there. Mario, we want to know where we can find you on the world of the internet.
All right, so I'm pretty big on YouTube. I think most people would actually know me from YouTube. So if you just type in my name, Mario Tomic, in YouTube, you're going to find a picture of a jack guy. So you can check some of that stuff out. There's a bunch of topics. Some of it is for just pure meathead, okay, how to get as jacked and as shredded as possible, while the other stuff is also from a personal development standpoint. I talk a bit about mindset. I talk a lot about psychology and how to become successful, how to master yourself and your emotion, all these other things that we talked about actually in the podcast. So YouTube is probably a really good place. Website, you can also go to tomic.com. That will send you some nice stuff for find there. There's also Instagram and Facebook. I think you can just link those somewhere, and people will be able to find there. I'm pretty active with Insta stories recently. I really enjoyed that. And Facebook as well. If you follow my page or even my profile, I tend to bust a lot of myths, and that's sort of what I do on a daily basis. I dedicate an hour to bust some kind of random fitness myth that I see or call some bullshit out that I think people should know about, and just to help to clean up the industry a little bit, as well as add other value in terms of personal development. So I think any of those, feel free to check them out. And if you find anything interesting, just feel free to reach out as well. I try to make myself available.
Love it, Mario. Absolutely love it. So, I just want to thank you once again for your time, for coming on the podcast and sharing your expertise and giving up your time, one of your most valuable assets. It really means a lot to me, Mario. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, man. It's really a pleasure, and I'm humbled to be here as a guy who I'm really excited to share my ideas, and I'm happy that you invited me. And as I said, really, really humbled, and hope you guys got some out of it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, fucking brilliant, dude. So that's it. I'll send you that email ASAP because I am dead keen, man. And I wish you all the best for the rest of your day.
All right, man. Thanks. Okay.
All right, gotcha. Head to brandonnankerveld.com/subscribe. This is also the best way to interact with me and keep up with what I'm doing. Again, head to brandonnankerveld.com/subscribe. As usual, thank you for listening, my friends. I release new episodes every week. Make sure you don't miss one by subscribing. It's super easy and means a lot to me. Go to iTunes, search for The 1% Show, and click subscribe. Once again, I'm your host, Brandon Nankerveld, and I'll see you in the next episode.